When the convoy protest rolled into downtown Ottawa in February of this year, no one could have predicted what was to come. Or could they? Testimony this week continued to reveal a very mixed picture of what officials knew and what they could have done about it. With us now for her take on the bigger picture of what the hearings tell us about protest and dissent in Canada. From the nation's capital, Susan Delacourt, national columnist for the Toronto Star. Hi, Susan. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
So help us understand this. What's the purpose of this public inquiry?
Well, technically, the purpose is quite limited. It's to find out whether, to determine whether the Prime Minister and Justin Trudeau and his government were correct to invoke the Emergencies Act on February 14th, Valentine's Day this year, in a bid to end the convoy protest here in Ottawa. That is, they don't have a choice on whether they have this inquiry or not. It's when you invoke this law, you have to set up an inquiry. I'm more intrigued by the unofficial role of this convoy inquiry, which is to find out what the heck it was. What was this thing that landed in Ottawa and at border points across the country last winter and managed to paralyze us?
Well, this was the first time that the Emergencies Act was used, February 14th, you said, and I think by February 23rd, it was rescinded?
Yeah, even sooner, I think, yeah.
So, you know, it's the first time it's happened in this country, but for those who might not be familiar with this process, what are some of the public inquiries in Canada's recent past?
Oh, well, you know, I guess the Gomery inquiry into sponsorship spending in Quebec is the one that we all remember here in Quebec. There have been, you know, ones into the integrity of the blood system. I think everybody is comparing this one a little bit to the Gomery inquiry because of all the high, you know, I think people will remember that Jean Chrétien testified at that one. And this one, for political drama and political players, has a lot. It has a lot of people. It has one significant person who is not showing up in the form of Premier Doug Ford, too, which is added to the intrigue.
That might change. Could that possibly change?
Well, everything changes in politics. I'm finding it stunning that he is not appearing and inviting comparisons to, you know, everybody from Donald Trump to whatever. I know in the legislature this week, they were talking about the fact that Mike Harris went to the Walkerton inquiry, for example, and Premier Ford is staying away from this one. It is a strange decision.
Well, Doug Ford has been known to say, you know, the buck stops with me. And he's always, he's taken a lot of pride in being accessible to the public. What would you say is unique about the situation that he's saying that he doesn't want to appear in front of the inquiry? Or is it because that this is the first time that the Emergencies Act was used?
I find the strangest part about him not appearing is the very public support he gave to the calling of the Emergency Act. We'll note he called his own emergency in Ontario, which had limited effect. And he stood last week in Ottawa at a press conference with the Prime Minister and said he stood shoulder to shoulder with Justin Trudeau in that. Subsequent testimony, though, has revealed that it was very hard to get Ontario to participate in these tripartite city, provincial, federal meetings on ending the convoy protest. There were conflicting messages coming from the OPP about what kind of resources that the province's Attorney General had promised. So it seems that there were two Doug Fords almost dealing with this very publicly. He's saying, yeah, I was really big in favor of this. This had to end. This was unacceptable. But he is digging in his heels about appearing at this inquiry and explaining this disconnect too. It looked like he was very happy to let the Prime Minister end this thing or Ottawa Police Services, but not get anywhere near it. Well, remember, he didn't come up to Ottawa during the convoy either.
Trudeau agreed to testify, and we've spoken a bit about who else is going to be, who has already testified, but help us understand, who are the people questioning the witnesses?
They are lawyers for the various people who have standing in here. So There's a lawyer for former Ottawa Police Chief Peter Slowly. There is a lawyer to represent a coalition of downtown Ottawa residents and businesses who were traumatized by this thing. Paul Champ, he's been very interesting. There's lawyers for the federal government. I've lost count by how many lawyers there are, but it's so what happens is a witness will get up. They're doing this. There's a particular order to this too. The way they're doing it, they're starting very local and they're expanding it. So first we got a whole, microscopic focus on Ottawa, the convoy, and it seems in the later part of this week, we're now moving to the border points, to the protests and blockades that we saw at the Ambassador Bridge, for example, and one in Alberta. And I think it eventually will go national, and that's when we'll get the federal cabinet ministers here. So I would, they seem to be sort of building up. I think one other element to this that we are really watching to see, and we're starting to get hints of it, was there an international dimension to this too? We all watched on American television during the convoy. There were certain political figures on the right seeing connections between Trump's America and this freedom convoy and cheering it on Fox News. So was there an international element to this protest too? I think that's a lot of people like me are very curious about that.
And I'm guessing, too, a unique aspect of this inquiry is that we're seeing it happen in real time. If you're on Twitter, I'm following so many different journalists. It's on Twitter. We're talking about it in the news. Does that make it unique, too?
A little bit. I think we're accustomed to this now, that, this thing unfolding in real time. I think what's been mostly good about it is it's political, certainly, but it's not partisan. We're not seeing partisan divides at this thing, and I find that interesting. You're not seeing conservatives versus liberals trying to take shots at each other inside the inquiry or even outside. It's not playing as a partisan thing. There is lots of politics, or there are lots of politics, to be sure. That I, even as a resident of Ottawa, I'm just struck by the dysfunction in this city that we have seen. We just had an election this week too, and many of the issues that are playing out in this hearing, how well the city council got along, dysfunction on the police board. A lot of those issues were issues in the election, and certainly they played out here too.
Well, you used dysfunction to describe the city of Ottawa. I have a quote here from Ottawa's outgoing mayor, Jim Watson, and during the first week of the inquiry, admitted that the government lost control over the occupation and failed to protect the citizens. This is the quote. "There was no question, when you look back in hindsight, at what happened. There were several failure points along the way, whether it was the city, provincial, or federal governments. We all have to take responsibility for the fact that we did not act fast enough and that the people of Ottawa suffered the most as a result of the fact that we did not clean up the occupation for 3 weeks." That's part of his testimony. What do you make of Watson's statement?
Well, as somebody who lived here through the convoy, I'd say that it feels like a bit like an understatement. It was incredible this thing went on as long as it did. And we know that it was attracting international notice too, not just from people who were cheering on the convoy, but from a few months ago, the American ambassador, Ambassador Cohen, came to the editorial board of the Toronto Star, and he said that Joe Biden's government was very grateful that the Trudeau government brought in the Emergencies Act. I think this was dysfunction on a high level. And as I said, I want to know what this thing was so that I have some kind of idea that it won't happen again. Because it did seem everybody, I wrote last week, everybody's run out of words to describe how unprecedented this was. We've never seen anything like this before. It's the largest police operation. Every word is sort of they're tripping over themselves, finding ways to describe how large and unexpected it was. And it took everybody by surprise. I don't, I hope that we don't see another thing like this, but I certainly hope that, that there are lessons from this about avoiding it.
Being in Toronto and seeing what was unfolding in Ottawa, for me, I realized I had so much ignorance around how the police operated, and I saw a lot of commentary in the past few weeks of what it was really like to be in Ottawa from people who were not living in Ottawa. So, having lived through it, what was it like to go through that?
It's funny. A boss of mine came to town last week, and we had, I don't know if non-Ottawa people know the Westin Hotel. We had breakfast at the Westin, and it has a gorgeous view of the city and sort of Parliament Hill and all of that. So he said, "Show me where the convoy was," and I said, "Everywhere, everywhere." It was huge. You could not get through downtown. It was frightening. There have been allusions to this, that particularly the corner of Rideau and Sussex, which is a major corner for non-Ottawa people, it's very near the Chateau Laurier. Mm. And that was a bit of a scary zone during the, and there have been references to this in the testimony too, that there was a criminal element operating there, and it was the most intimidating part. And for anybody in Ottawa to have, it felt, and it was officially an occupation. But, you know, I think if it's very hard for non-Ottawa people to imagine, but it was like the city was under siege for 3 weeks.
The city itself is still recovering, and I don't mean this question to come off as being disrespectful or unfeeling. It's been months since the Freedom Convoy and the Emergencies Act took place. Why should people care about this public inquiry?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because first of all, it didn't just happen to Ottawa. It happened to our, it was a national, I believe it was an emergency. It was a protest that frightened a lot of us because it bore some resemblance, if not an inspiration, with, maybe we'll find out, more direct links between the kind of thing we saw on January 6th in the United States, January 6th, 2021, the siege on Capitol Hill. This felt like it was one in slow motion. I think it matters in that, you know, the way you framed this this at the very beginning. I think we've seen a different kind of protest in Canada. We've seen a certain disrespect for the law, a sort of a flouting of normal rules of political discourse, and I think that's not limited to this convoy. We saw hints of it during the federal election campaign, and I don't know that that's gone away. Mm. So I really hope that this inquiry answers what is it that we were dealing with last February, not just in Ottawa, but at border points, and how vulnerable is this country to that, to that kind of, I'd go beyond calling it mischief, into something, anarchy, that reigned here for a while.
I want to read a quote from a piece that you wrote for the Toronto Star about the inquiry, and it offers what you say is a chance of reckoning for Canadians. You wrote, "This has the potential to be far more than what the government did wrong inquiry, as so many commissions are. The story here goes beyond what Trudeau and his government needed to do to contain the convoy, though that's a worthy goal in itself. This is a chance for Canadians to look at how deeply the country was shaken by 2 years of COVID and how vulnerable or naive Canada is to believe it was insulated from dysfunction rattling through other institutions at home and abroad." Can you expand on that?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say. Is I think we've all seen. I think I described it in one of the articles I wrote during the convoy here. It felt like a national nervous breakdown. It felt, if you lived in Ottawa, that this was all the pent-up frustration of COVID on either side, and seeing how much it has damaged the country, the psyche of the country, I guess. And also, as I said, I'm worried that our institutions, police, governments, are vulnerable if people set out to cause mayhem, that we're too trusting. I think it's such an Ottawa story that the police expected the convoy protesters to park out at a site on Coventry Road and take shuttle buses to Parliament Hill. That it seemed to be that is such a bureaucratic and very nice, typically nice Canadian way of seeing what happened here. Nobody was going to be taking shuttle buses to Parliament Hill. They were taking hot tubs to Parliament Hill. So I think, yes, we should shake ourselves out of any complacency about this. And well, we don't have to stop being nice. Maybe we should stop being naive that we aren't vulnerable to this kind of thing.
You said that this damaged the psyche of Canadians because amongst my friend group, there was a lot of division between people who were supporting the so-called Freedom Convoy and people who were just in shock to the level of what was happening in Ottawa. We've mentioned a few times that the Emergency Act was unprecedented in Canadian history. Looking back at it now, how did it shape our understanding of dissent and protest in this country?
I think it showed us that that there aren't rules anymore. That it's been, again, almost endearing to hear the police testifying. Well, we are a city that has rules about protest, and we have a Charter of Rights, and it shows you that if somebody decides those things don't matter, we just sort of throw up our hands. And I think what was a bit heartening for me in this was that the police have had this on their radar. There's something they call the Hendon Report. And police have been keeping, at all levels, and security and defense, and have been keeping on top of a growing change in the shape of protest. And whether it's veering into illegal and criminal activity. And I would kill to have this Hendon Report delivered to my email every week, as many police people are apparently. But we're seeing in this thing called the Hendon Report that this has been on the radar of police for a while, that protests and blockades have become increasingly vexing to authority. And it's something we can't afford to ignore.
I want to seek in two more questions before our time is up. But you said that what you're seeing right now unfolding with the inquiry, it's nonpartisan, which is so great to see because we've seen how polarized everything has become. Do you think that what happened in Ottawa impacted more on how we look at our leaders or more about how we view the police?
I think for now, this is going to be about the police, but it's early days. We're only 2 weeks into this inquiry, and there's at least 3 or 4 more weeks left. I think it's going to move to a political level. I think it is going to get partisan because we did see the Conservatives, notably the new Conservative leaders, supporting this convoy. I don't know whether that's going to become awkward for them the more we learn about what it was. But I think we're not going to be able to keep politics out of this forever, I'm sorry to say. But I think that it's going to move away from a story of police into a story of politics.
What would happen if the commission found that the government should not have invoked the Emergencies Act?
It's an interesting question. Nothing, because you can't change the past. I guess it will be a guide for future governments if, that this did not meet the test. Because we've only used it once before, I guess we're setting the parameters by which it is used, and this inquiry will be useful for that. So I guess a guide for the future, but it's not like the Prime Minister is going to be sent to jail for using it or anything. And I'm not even sure that the public is going to have a judgment on this either way. I think, by and large, all the public opinion I've seen says this thing just had to be ended, and if it took the Emergency Act, it took the Emergency Act. I'm glad we're having these hearings, though. I'm really glad we're having them.
So what comes next?
Oh, day by day. We just, if you're like me, just riveted to it. It's as I said, it's going to get wider and wider in scope. And I would keep an eye open, and I think people who are curious about this, keep an eye open for what this thing was. And let's see whether it was related to other disruption we've seen around certainly south of the border and around the world.
Susan, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your insights and appreciate all the good work that you've been doing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.